Few little things I want to get started talking about. One is, I know with New York and Boston run, it must have gotten fairly cold in the winters. And one thing I've heard from a lot of the clerks is that the heat and other conditions in the cars weren't exactly prime.
Well,
So would you like to talk a little bit about serving on an RPO car in the winter in the Northeast?
in the winter in the Northeast, well, my best example of that was when I was on the State of Maine train. We had no heat from Portland all the way down to New York, and the steam pipes were so cold that they had ice on them, and we couldn't get the doors shut because of the ice in the tracks of the doors. So we ran with the doors open and no heat for that length. And I might add that we also lost the generator belt, so the lights gradually went down also. So it was a kind of an entombing experience.
Did you have any troubles with the ice in the rails or ice with the doors when you were trying to make a catch and throw?
Yeah, well, throws were a problem. Catches were not, but throws were a problem. Like in Kennebunk, Maine, I once threw a pouch onto a station, and it had an adjoining bowling alley next to it, and the pouch was a round one, and it hopped and skipped and jumped through the bowling alley window. And I'm sure that was not too hilarious to those people, but I got a kick out of it, I think.
Bit of a surprise to the
Yeah.
bowlers.
Yeah, it was like throwing a flat rock across a pond, you know, it skipped. But
Well, how about heating in the summer? And we talk about the cold and in the winter. Were the cars heated in the winter? Were they cooled in the summer?
well, they heated them up out in the Mott Haven yards and off Grand Central there, and it'd be weather like it might be 95 outside, but when the steel cars heated up, it was like 120 inside, and they'd back them down into track 17 there, and between the dust that arrived with the mail, you couldn't turn the fans on because they just blow dust all over. So you endured that until you got out of 110th Street and took a breath of cold, fresh air. But yeah, they could be pretty warm in the summer too.
Yeah, talk about the dirt. That's something else everybody mentions, is how dirty the job could be.
Yeah,
and
well,
when we think about our pieces of mail, they aren't dirty at all, but people don't think about the bags and all the other stuff. So
right.
tell us about working with dust and dirt.
Well, yeah, you take in bags of mail that either been laying out on a dusty platform or in quantity, and then of course when you went to dump the sack, you dump also the dust came out along with the mail, and then not only that, but you're told when you're a rookie, elbow the sack. You put your hand inside the sack and look in, make sure there's no pieces left behind. So yeah, you know, that was a dirty job, yes. And,
So you had special clothes that you would take for that?
No. It was. You could always tell a mail clerk he had a dirty shirt and a long chain, and didn't change either. You know, one of those things. But it was, you know, it was a problem. We were away from home for a week at a time, so we'd take a couple of changes of clothing, but you know, it wasn't all that glamorous. No.
Now let's talk about the schedules. That was one of the more interesting things differentiating the mail clerks from other jobs, is that you would have a number of days on, but then you had a number of days off as well.
Yeah. When I was on the State of Maine, I ran a 6 and 8, 6 and 15, which was you'd work 6 days on, begin on a Monday, and you end up early Saturday morning, and then have the following week off, and then work one more week, and then you'd have 2 weeks off. It was based on we worked long hours, and so that between that and the compensatory time that they gave you for studying your schemes on the off week, that made for the time off.
And how were you married at the time when you were working as a clerk?
Yeah.
What did your wife think about all those days away, or all those days at home?
Well, it was diaper changing home, and when I was away, you know, it was pretty tough because I used to take $20 with me to spend a week away from home and try to live on $20. But I found out you could get the ends of the bread for free in Penn Station if you got the 25-cent bowl of soup. So they would give you the ends of the bread to go with it, so that'd be lunch. And so you learn to do without. Take a can of sardines with you, that's another lunch. And so we worked pretty cheap.
And talk about staying over. You would stay in YMCA's or little rooms with other clerks?
Those are not good places. I used to buy a copy of the New York Times, and I'd crumple it up and put it around my bed and stick my wallet in my pillow slip in case there was some adventurer climbed in under the cubicle and tried to rob me. They used to steal shoes, too. I remember that early in life, stick them down in the bottom of the bed. And yeah, those were some adventurous places. And we sleep on a bench. Up in Providence, we'd sleep on a bench and with all the other bums there. But the trouble was the cop recognized us by our chain, and he would let us sleep, and then he'd go whacking the other guys on the bottom of the feet and tell them to get out. And they say, why don't those other bums get kicked out? But it was, well, we were special bums.
And you were saying when you had your days at home, your days off, it was diaper changing?
Oh, yeah, that was, among others, my daughters and sons. And, yeah, I was a stay-at-home dad that week. But like all other people during those days, you had part-time jobs. I drove cab, drove fuel oil trucks, and fixed washing machines, did 100 other things to make ends meet. You know, those are tough times for young parents.
What about the pay for the railroad clerks? Was that job paying better than most? You said you still had second jobs on your days off.
Yeah, it was one level above a regular city clerk. We got one level higher pay, but it wasn't that good. You know, when I started out, it was maybe $3,500 a year or something like that. You know, it was tough to live on, but we made do.
What made you choose that as a career?
I was an adventurous type. I did a little cowboying when I was a kid for a short time and bumming around with my brother, but my uncle was a railway mail clerk. And, you know, he described the glamour of it to me, and he didn't tell me anything about the poor side. But that was the principal reason, I think. It was fun. So
if you had someone that you were trying to convince, if you had a nephew or a son that you wanted to take on a job as an RPO, what would you say the adventurous part was?
Well, the adventurous part was you worked like hell with a crew that worked the same as you did, because if they didn't work hard, they didn't last long out there. So it was a lot of camaraderie and good spirit, and we had a very tight-knit group of people who worked together, and they loved each other.
I hear the word camaraderie a lot from the clerks.
Oh, yeah.
One person said he knew the clerks better than their families did.
Well, I had a buddy, Bill Shuster. I went to work with him, deadheaded down from New Haven to New York with him on a Monday, and we worked together for 12 hours and went home, ate breakfast, and this is in the Railway Mail Club in Hotel Martinique. We'd sleep in the same bunk. We'd get up and eat lunch, go back to work, and work with each other again until the last trip late Friday night. So I did know him. I think we knew each other better than our families knew us, because we spent, you know, really intense time together. I saw him in his good mood, his bad moods, and when he was sober and when he was drunk. So I mean, we really got close. Yeah.
About how many guys did you work with on a regular basis in your cars?
Well, when I was a regular, I worked on an average about a 8 or 9 man crew. I was a foreman of a car of 9 men when I was a foreman.
That's when you're regular. You were a sub at first, right?
Oh, I subbed.
A substitute.
Yeah, subbed for a while. And because where I lived, I got all kinds of oddball jobs, you know, the one-man jobs that nobody else wanted. And so I did some of that. But when I became regular, I became first on the shoreline, and then the state of Maine, and back to the Boston and Washington.
Let's talk about being a sub for a little while. You said the jobs that nobody else wanted. What kind of jobs were those?
The pitch and stand was one. I was called Sunday afternoon to go report to Pittsfield that night. Knowing no one in Pittsfield, I brought my car and an alarm clock with me. I slept in the railroad station, and the alarm clock woke me up, and so I had to go in and dress the car, look like I knew what I was doing, although it was my first time on that run. But you know, then eventually the guy showed up, and he was grouchy as all heck, and you know, stupid subs and all that stuff, you know. But you went through that, you know. Guys on one and two man jobs, they were usually grouchies.
You said you were called as a sub. How often did you get called? Was it almost every day when you were subbing, or? Well,
we had general orders too that would come out. They'd either give you a week on a job, or you'd be called for single jobs. Maybe one Monday come and you had no jobs, and then boy, you better stay by the phone because there'd be. If somebody booked off, you better be ready to go. I remember one Thanksgiving morning, I got a call in New York. They said, you meet train 50 in New Haven, and you better have a register key. So there was nobody on the train that had a registered mail key, and so when I jumped on, by default, I became the registered mail clerk for the rest of the trip, and some of the stuff that hadn't been opened and whatnot. That was a typical case, yeah.
Let's talk about dressing. You talk about dressing the car. Explain for people what that means.
Well, that was dressing the car, hanging the car. You had to hang pouches in the pouch racks, depending on the number of stops that you had to make. The heavy pouches would be in the front of the rack, and the lighter ones into the rear. And you would have facing slips, labels, pouch labels that you'd slide in by the number. Like Boston might have 10 labels in it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, X. X would have the registered mail in it. And then the overhead bins, they all had labels in them too. And then the newspaper end of the train, they would hang the sacks, and then with labels in the newspaper sacks too. So we divided the cars between the papers and parcels and the letter mail and the pouchman. So that's then the clerks who worked the letter cases. They brought their headers. There were simple cardboard pieces, and they would fit them in each aperture, depending on the stops and whatever state they were working.
So there were things that the train or that the railway line or that the post office had waiting for you to dress the car and to get ready. What were the things, you talked about the chain that you always wore, what were some of the things you brought yourself to get ready for a day?
Well, okay, I had to, on my off week, part of the job was I had to stamp up facing slips, which they used to go on the back of the package of mail. Any mistake that went on there, it said Boston to New York, train 2, Joseph L. Gomez. In other words, it went back to me. And if I had made enough mistakes, my boss in Boston would hear about it, and I'd get demerits. But that was the facing slips. You had to bring those in, properly identified by trip, by week, and also pouch labels that you had to have in abundance and all ready to put into the pouches by day and by trip. And also, your schemes and schedules had to be updated. You'd get all kinds of changes, like the Berlin-Albany. They're going to change the train number or the time number, or with the change of daylight saving time. That train has been canceled and been moved to another time. So you had to keep up with your schedules of mail routes and your schemes. And your schemes had to be put up. If you didn't get 95% on a scheme, you were gone. That was a dismissal.
And explain what a scheme is for people who don't know.
Scheme is anywhere from 200 cards for the state of Rhode Island to 2,500 cards for the state of Pennsylvania. And they were for each post office or station or branch in that state. And eventually you had to learn all of those post offices and all of those stations. Like New York City, the stations used to be P. Wall City Hall, makes me SAD sad and MAD mad. Bowling Green, Wall, Church Street South, Grand Central, Murray Hill, Madison Square, etc. But you learned those, and you also knew the city of Portland, New York City, Houston Street goes to Canal out Nick, 1 to 130 Canal Street, and so you had to learn those things, and some of them we did by association. It was funny. When they came out with sectional centers, the clerks had to learn things a different way. Instead of sorting mail to a line, they sorted mail to a sectional center. And so I was one of the first, because I had a good memory for association. We tried to make up names like Carlisle. I'm going to explain it in a second. Carlisle, the actor, conquered Lincoln when he was stowed in Bedford and may not recover. Carlisle was a town in Massachusetts. Concord, of course, Lincoln, Mass. When he was stowed, and Bedford and Maynard, they're all towns that all went around this one area that was a distribution center. So the fellows would remember that, and they would come to me for association words. So it was fun.
How many cities or areas would you say you knew, had memorized?
At one time?
Yeah.
3 sections of New York, Portland City, state of Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, A, B, C, New Jersey, New York City, A, B, and C. New York State, A, B, and C. I never learned anything south of that.
That's enough.
When I was on Boston and Washington, I worked New York City both ways, so that was...
And talk about practicing. I know, as you said, you had to know your schemes 97%.
Yeah.
You had to practice a lot to do that.
Yeah,
right?
we used to have those. We used to get these little Gerber baby food boxes. They would come to 24 to a case, and so we would tape 4 cases together and made a 98 or 6 separation case. So then you'd put your little header in there, and then your practice card. You'd take the little card that said, for example, East Poland, Maine. And so you had to know where you had to put it in the Portland section or whatnot. And so then you test yourself when you're through. You throw 100 cards and look at it and see the results. And eventually you threw all the cards because you had to make sure you were 100%. And I prided myself, I did 100%.
How often were you tested?
We used to test it 3 times a year. And 95 was passing. And so it was, I'd say, I don't remember getting anything less than 100 ever.
Very good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, there was one other thing that you had to carry with you. You didn't mention the gun.
Oh yeah, that was it was not a source of pleasure because it was another thing that was heavy and everything, and it had to be carried unloaded off duty and loaded on duty, and the heck was to pay if an inspector came in and every clerk didn't have his badge and his gun and his key and good visibility, so. There was a lot of things that took place with guns, and some I'll mention and some I won't. But I remember one fellow was unloading his gun, and there was another man in the toilet at the time, and these were all metal cars, so inadvertently he squeezed off his shot, and it went through the side of the metal into the toilet, and it reverberated through the toilet, and the fellow who was in the toilet come running out, and he had a toupee normally, and it was hanging off, and he was about the most scared guy you could ever imagine. That was one,
Oh, goodness. Did you practice? Were you required to practice with the weapon?
Yeah, we had to practice hard.
They were 38
Yeah,
handguns,
38.
right?
Some of them carried Colts, and I carried Smith & Wesson. But you had to maintain a proficiency. You were tested for proficiency with firearms and the proper care and use of them. And you carried a permit. And so one fellow lost his gun inadvertently, and so he got a call at home. He says, "Where's your gun?" I said, "I got it right in my bag." He says, "Oh yeah, you sure you got it?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "What's the number?" And the guy gave him the number. He says, "Funny, there's a Hoboken police have a gun with exactly the same number." You know, so he got pretty well taken over the coals for that. So you did protect your gun at all times.
And you said you were wary when the inspectors came to make sure you had everything. How often did the inspectors show up?
Oh boy, they were hell on wheels. You know, everything had to be perfect for those guys. I had an old inspector. His name was Leatherman. I mean, you can picture him. He had pince-nez glasses, and you know, you just look at the guy. This guy is going to be rough, but he gave me a pretty easy time. But some of them could be really tough. I remember one instance with an inspector. I was a registered mail clerk, and we were carrying some Air Force documents, important documents. They were going to Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. For some reason or another, I didn't get a receipt back from the New York and Chick line. And so I notified the inspection service that I didn't get a receipt. Well, this Inspector Bauer met me every trip in Boston. "Are you sure? What did you do? Where did you go after that day?" You know, and he asked me the same questions over and over and over. And finally, one day, he met me at the station, South Station. He says, "Oh, I want to tell you, they received that piece." I said, "Okay, give me a signature now." So I got even with him. I had him sign for the piece for me at that point. So yeah, they could be tough, but they were good. They protected our interests.
You were talking about a friend of yours before. I'd like to hear that story again, if you don't mind. The fellow who was robbed, where
Okay.
the 38 really wasn't equal to the shotguns.
No, see, his name was Brooks Hall. He was a dear friend of mine, and one time he had a one-man job, and it was summertime. The doors were open, in violation, but he was stopped in a station, and two ruffians jumped in, and they each had a sawed-off shotgun with them. And we want the payroll for the Otis Elevator Company, and one of them handcuffed poor Brooks to the rack, and so like they were professional, they'd already demonstrated their proficiency in that, and so anyway, he kind of pointed down toward the corner, and one of them grabbed the first sack on top, and it was a sack of newspapers, and they jumped out happily with that, and were captured very shortly afterwards, and did a lot of hard time because of it. But poor Brooks's picture was on the front page of the New York Daily News, and God, I'm guilty. I never let him forget it. But I said, you should have taken those guys on, Brooks, you know. But you know, everybody knew what to do in a case like that.
Yeah. Did you have any trouble with the wrecks?
Wrecks?
Or train accidents while you were on the?
Yeah, I was in 2 train accidents and a breakup too. Our train, we killed 5 students for the University of Rhode Island one night, and it was in the summer, and we were running in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and two cars were racing each other, and one car made it and the other one didn't. So we heard the whoosh, and we grabbed the monkey bars, and we knew that we only had seconds before the brakes hit, and so we didn't know what we smelled, but we smelled a whiff of gasoline when we went by, and so anyway, the engineer comes staggering back, and he says, I think I got him, but we went back there, and so we all walked along each side of the cars back in the dark, and first thing I saw was a guy sitting up against a tree. It scared the life out of me because he was dead, you know. But we had that experience hitting people, but I was on a 172 deadheading when they went off in Bridgeport, and we went off, and the engineer got killed there, and also North Kingstown, Rhode Island, we got in a wreck, and I spent 6 months in the Marine Hospital in Staten Island, New York.
What happened in that wreck?
We hit a car that should have been on a siding. It was on the main iron, and it was like a humpback that happened recently around here someplace. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that put me on my back in Staten Island for a while.
Let's talk about one thing I also hear about. Clerks don't always tell me about the pranks they pulled or pranks pulled on them, but pranking seems to have been fairly common in the RPO service. Any pranks that you want to talk about?
Oh, yeah. In New London, one mail train had to wait for the other one to get through. So on the summer nights, 179 would be coming through, and 180 would be waiting. And so we knew they'd be waiting there. So when we came through, the guys in 179 like to stand out and say, "Hi guys, hello," the other crew. We have a bucket of water. We let them have it through the windows, and we gave them a good dousing when we could. And this is a little risque, but it won't be too bad. We had a fellow named Eddie C. I won't use his last name. He was an ex-Marine, but he liked to parade through the station, looked like an RPO clerk, lean on the bars when we were stopping in the station. So he had his belt loops tied together in lieu of a belt, and so anyway, we were standing in the station going to ogle the ladies, and one fella cut his belt loops with a twine knife, and he dropped his trousers just when we were going through the station. So that was another prank. But those things were done all the time. Yeah. Guys kidded around a lot.
And also, I've been told that the newbies, the new guys on the train, and subs were also pranked on a regular basis.
Oh, they did everything to us. I'm just trying to think of some. We had the dirtiest jobs. We had to put the mail out. So they say, well, "Who were you running for?" "Oh, Conklin." "Oh yeah, he puts the mail out tonight." And the next day, you're Dooley. "What do I do now?" "Oh yeah, he puts the mail out tonight." "Wait a minute, I put it out last night." "Oh no, you're supposed to put it out tonight." But they would have you do all the odds and extra jobs and carry the ditty bag. The ditty bag was the common supply bag, and it probably weighed twice as much as any other bag. But in addition to your own bag, the subs had to carry the ditty bag. Yeah.
Talk about a little bit about when you first get in the car. You talked about dressing the car. How did people know where to go? What assignments? Did you have a regular assignment? Were you always the letter clerk, or were you always the pouch guy?
Well, yeah. If you were a regular, you had your duty call for maybe work the pouch table eastbound and maybe work New York City going west. And very seldom they would give you 2 pouch jobs together, because they wanted to broaden your education. They gave you a letter-sized job one time and pouches the other way. And when you're a sub, you generally knew the characters that you're replacing. So they would tell you, you're going to work for Bill Conklin. I say, okay, I know what I'm going to be doing. So you dress and wear accordingly, and depending on what you're doing. And but a lot of times, you go on a strange job you didn't know. You'd never been there before, so you just kind of pick up the pieces and go from there. I was on a stamp in New York one time, and stamp in New York had start from Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Larchmont, Pelham, Greenwich, Riverside, Coscob, Old Green, and Stamford. And boy, you better have the mail up for each one, and locked it out in time. One time, my first job, the conductor came and helped me a little bit. He knew more about it than I did, but that was funny.
About how much time was there between the catches and the exchanges on some of those runs? How much time did you have to get everything ready to throw it out?
At the most 5 minutes, and they would, and you knew where you were going too. You didn't have time to look up and see where it was, but you hear a different sound on the rail, and that told you you're heading for the curve. Like coming into Waterford and New London, you'd hear the sound of wickety whack, on the rail. So we say, hey, we're hitting wickety whack. You better get ready, you know. Different things like that were tips, you know. And then you go around a bend, and Old Orchard Beach is there, and you know where you were at all times, pretty much.
Did fellows miss the catch from time to time?
Oh yeah, oh, horror stories. But we had a guy called Jungle Jim. He was a little bit bent from the war, and it seemed that he wore a pith helmet, so the boss called him Jungle Jim. But he's a little excitable, and he was supposed to make a throw and a catch, and at Windsor Locks, in Connecticut, and the Spring Line, and so the clerk in charge saw him leaning forward toward the door, and he says, he saw him getting antsier and antsier to make this throw. So he says, yelled down to him, Jim, no, no. He thought he said throw. So there it went, right into the Windsor Locks Canal. But that was hell to pay about that one. But that was quite a story about throws and catches there. A lot of them. But they were an adventure. I took pride. I loved to make throws and catches, and a lot of times the guys they didn't like to do it, so they had me do it. I enjoyed it. But the first guy that taught me how to make a throw and catch, he pulled the bar down in Thompsonville and went over the railroad bridge. He broke his shoulder showing me how to do it. So, Bob Montgomery.
Did you ever lose a catcher arm on any of the cars you were on by the guy putting the arm down too early or too late and hitting something else?
Only that time there we hit the railroad bridge, but no, they were pretty sturdy things. The Coombe and Barb, they were good, and but a lot of times what they did, the railroad didn't always provide the cinder shield. You were supposed to have a cinder shield, and you would stand and you look over your shoulder through the cinder shield and have your pouch, and you're pulling the bar down and with the pouch in the other hand. And then, depending on the grade, sometimes you had to raise the bar, sometimes you had to lower it, depending on the grade, and your throw and catch had to be simultaneous. But it was, I never saw anybody lose a bar, no.
So what happened if you didn't have the cinder shield?
Oh, that's when you got cinders in your eyes. And you had to go to Grand Central and get them to pull that stuff out of your eyes sometimes.
Is there any particular, we're winding up a little on our hour here, anything in particular you'd like to mention about your time as an RPO clerk that we haven't covered?
A lot of things. It was a fun time, and it was a very profitable time for the Postal Service. I think they made money on us because at that time you could mail a letter at 9 o'clock in Grand Central Station, and a special delivery letter, and get it delivered in Farmington, Maine the next morning, hard copy. And they've never been able to do the equal of that since. So I defy somebody to come up with a better system. But that was it was an enjoyable thing, and there was a lot of hardship there. But by working together, we used to get a lot of things done. And they used to say, nobody's up until we're all up. So it was a kind of a thing that no matter what job was being worked, everybody pitched in. And time for a rally, boys. That was the end of that. That was, everybody jumped on it. And that's how we got it done.
Hate to ask, was there ever a time you came into a station with work left to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure there was. Yeah. And there was a lot of explanations required for that. But sometimes they had to shop the car and transfer it to another car, so you'd get your mail late and you wouldn't get it all up by the time the consist pulled out. So you had to describe in detail. I was a foreman then, and you had to describe in detail what mail missed, what you disposed of it, and how. And actually, because of that, I got congratulatory letters because I did what I thought was the right thing.
Good.
Yeah.
So, and one last thing about the clerks. I know I've heard so many say it was the best job they had, and so many nice things. What did you think? Was all in all, if you had to do it all over again, would you have picked RPO as the way to go?
In spades, yeah. Oh yeah, that was the best.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Joe.
I
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you asking us to share our memories with you.
Well, this is great. It's wonderful. And thank you very much.